Hi, I'm Angela Cavanaugh, the Executive Director of CAI, and I'd like to welcome all of our attendees and thank our partners, the Board of Directors, and the CAI team for today's program. Some housekeeping rules. Today, all participants will be muted. Please type your questions into the question box and be sure to name the panelists that you would like the question directed to. If you need a certificate for manager credits, please email Jackie at Jacqueline, Jaclyn, at CAI-NJ.org. And just a note that you must be on the presentation for the entire time to receive a certificate. I would now like to welcome Steve Roderick of our membership committee. Welcome, Steve.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me. My name is Steve Roderick, and I am the Assistant Vice President at USI Insurance, and I'm also a member of the CAI membership committee. As being a part of the membership committee, I want to take a few moments to remind you all participating to be sure to renew your memberships, or if you're new to the organization and you're not a member, to inquire about joining this great association. For you homeowner leaders out there, members have access to CAI New Jersey's ADR program, which is a cost-effective way to fulfill your association's legal obligations. Now, we all know that the best community associations have the best boards. They're educated, knowledgeable, and prepared to lead their communities successfully. So joining CAI and help your board succeed. CAI New Jersey provides an extensive library of content. They wanted me to say robust, but I just couldn't do it. So it's an extensive library for community leaders, as well as an ongoing virtual learning opportunities. You get access to industry leaders in areas such as accounting, engineering, legal, as well as insurance. Not to mention, you can have 3 to 15 board members and key volunteers added at one low price. So I should also mention that tomorrow, Thursday, November the 5th, we're having Community Association Roundtable discussion, which is free for homeowner leaders and managers to attend. For you managers and management companies out there, you get access to print and online directory of industry leaders to help your communities navigate these unparalleled times. I actually keep mine right here. I keep it right by my desk. I use this thing a lot. This is great. It's actually indexed, so it's easy to flip through and find what you're looking for. You can earn continuing education credits, oftentimes for free. If not, they're usually discounted. Like today, if you're looking for your credits, as Angela mentioned, you can do that here. You can also utilize our 2020 virtual trade show catalog, which will help you navigate through all of our top industry professionals. Now, for you business partners, such as myself, CAI offers continued opportunity to build your brand. This is the place to do it, folks. I couldn't have had the success in this industry that I've had without CAI for networking opportunities, and we are committed to helping you with platforms such as online Zoom seminars for providing the necessary education to support your business. Networking opportunities, they're endless here. This is the best place to find your networking opportunities to build your brand and connect virtually with other business partners. So we do have some upcoming events. The virtual expo has been running for a few weeks now. So please visit CAI-NJ.org to see the schedule of video releases and current video resources that have already been viewed. This is a resource that you can use well into 2021. We also have Wednesday webinars, such as today. Every Wednesday at noon, join our educational program, allowing 1 CEU credit for those who need accreditation. Lastly, help our FAST committee, that's the acronym FAST committee, spread some holiday cheer and donate to our adoptive family. We'll be adopting multiple families to ensure that they get to enjoy the holiday season. Through Interfaith Neighbors, a local Monmouth County organization, we're asking that members support the initiative by sending gift cards and donations to be used for purchasing gifts to the CAI-NJ office. Your help and support is greatly appreciated to bring cheer this holiday season to multiple families. If you guys have any questions regarding renewing or becoming a member, feel free to reach out to me, and we'll help you as best that we can. We do monthly outreaches, so if you guys have any questions, you can get in touch with me. Thank you, and enjoy this great event.
Thank you, Steve. And as Steve said, if anyone has questions regarding membership, you can either reach out to anyone on the membership committee or reach out to Robin. And her email is robin, R-O-B-I-N, at CAI-NJ.org. Today, our first presenter will be Scott Berieski. Scott is the principal of South Shore Construction and serves as the company's vice president. He is experienced in the repairs, maintenance, and protection of concrete and masonry construction, including building facades and park garages. In his 15 years of experience, Scott has overseen over $70 million worth of projects completed by South Shore Construction. Scott is in charge of the day-to-day operations for the company, which he has been in business for over 39 years and serves clients of New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York, and Connecticut. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you very much, Angela. Thanks everybody for being here. Even though this is a virtual event, I do have pants on for everybody. So this is not a pantsless event for me, taking this very seriously. Let's get into it. Today we're going to talk, or I'm going to talk about the common causes of window leaks. Can you see this screen, or are you guys just seeing the PowerPoint?
We see the PowerPoint. It looks good.
Okay, good. Great. Okay. So let's see here. I cannot. There we go. Okay. So just a brief introduction for everybody about the company. So again, the company name is South Shore Construction. We specialize in concrete and masonry restoration with a primary focus on parking garages and building facades. We've been in business for over 39 years. I personally have over 15 years of experience, and I'm one of the principals of the company. We service all of New Jersey, Eastern PA, the New York surrounding metro area. We work on all different types of construction and structures, so even beyond the condominium association buildings. We work for malls, stadiums, office buildings, warehouses, hospitals, so we have a wide array of experience with different types of structures. And so we work with building owners, property managers, architects, and engineers to help repair, maintain, and protect properties. So what do window leaks typically look like? So they could be ponding water on your windowsill. You could see water staining on interior finishes from dirt pickup. So you might see some of the brown marks that are left behind where water was and picked up some dirt and dried and left it there. You could see damaged sheetrock or other materials. It could be drapes, carpeting, wood framing could start to show different amounts of damage. And the leaks can show up on windowsills, jambs, which are the sides of the windows, or the heads, which is the tops. And the key here, as far as where you see these leaks, is that kind of leads you to where to start looking for the problems, because just the way gravity works, you're always going to figure that the water is going to come from above the location where you start to see it. So if your water is, if your leaks are occurring at the top of your window, you don't want to start spending your time looking at the sill of your window because it's going to be coming from above. So here's just a few pictures of what some window leaks could look like. Damaged paint, staining, sheetrock damage, the things I discussed in the last slide. So what are some ways to identify the source of the leaks? So the first one is visual observations. You might be looking for failed caulk, cracked mortar, or ephes, or stucco, whatever the facade of your building is constructed of. You're just basically looking for noticeable deficiencies that would be obvious for you. This is the least costly because it doesn't really cost anything to just look with your own eyes, but it's the least definitive in terms of identifying the true source of where the water is. Sometimes you can find it, and other times it's just a crapshoot when you're doing a visual observation. The next is water testing. This is basically applying water to the exterior of the windows, starting from the low point and working toward the high point. And the purpose is to try and force the window to leak. And once you cause it to leak, you then can start looking in that location for whatever the deficiency might be. So this is a little bit more expensive because you're going to have to pay somebody, a contractor, to do this for you. It's not always definitive. I have had times in the past where you can't recreate a leak. For example, some people complain, I only have a leak during a nor'easter when it's very rainy and windy. and you can't always recreate that. So that's the one downside of water testing. The next is exploratory openings. That's where you're actually removing portions of your exterior facade to see what's going on with the construction behind it. And the water testing can be used in conjunction with this, in that you can sometimes identify where the water's starting to enter, and you may have to remove some of the exterior facade after the water testing to get behind and say what's going on here. And that's probably the most costly thing, which is removing portions of your facade in order to identify the problem. But it's going to be the most definitive, because you're going to be able to find what's happening, where's your deficiency, so you know how to fix it moving forward. So what are some typical causes of leaks? Perimeter caulking failure, which just going back to that for a second, that could be from a bad installation by a contractor, or it could be caulked beyond its useful life. The next is the window head flashing issue. Basically the same thing as above, bad installation or beyond its useful life. Window gasket shrinkage. And all these things I'm going over now for you folks, I'm gonna get a little deeper into them in the upcoming slides, but these are just the main causes I want to touch on. Window gasket shrinkage, that's from age and weathering. Weeps, caulk shut. There's weeps in some window systems that allow water that gets in to come out. Sometimes contractors accidentally caulk them shut, which traps water inside. And another thing is just older windows beyond their life expectation, and they need to be replaced. So repair methods for perimeter caulking. It's as simple as remove and recaulk the existing sealant. The key here is proper cleaning, and the installation is critical. So you want to make sure that the existing caulk is removed. You want to be adhering to the substrate, the window, and whatever the perimeter substrates are, not to existing sealant. It's important to tool it properly so that you have a good seal to the two substrates that you're caulking to. And the other part of it too is you don't want too much or too little caulk. Some people sometimes think more caulk is better, but that actually restricts the movement. So I'm just going to touch on briefly 3 commonly used sealants for perimeter window caulking. First is polyurethane. It's less expensive, it's versatile in its usage, and that it can be used for facades, parking garages, vertical caulking, horizontal caulking, below grade sealants. Has good adhesion. It's compatible with waterproofing membranes, so you can use it and put waterproofing membranes over top of it, and it's also paintable. Next is silicone, which is more expensive than a polyurethane. It has excellent movement and excellent adhesion. It has a very long lifespan, 20 plus years, but it's not paintable. Things don't stick very well to silicone. So for the most part, if you want to paint your caulk to match the window frame or match the building, this is not the product for you. And then the last is a hybrid, which is a polyurethane and silicone combined product. And basically, the benefit of this is it has the best properties of both materials. Repairing methods for window head flashings. So the picture on the lower left shows a window lintel with brick, and the detail on the right shows what a proper detail should look like. And basically, this repair involves removing the exterior finish. It could be brick, it could be stucco or EIFS or some other material, but you want to install a membrane flashing. Usually a metal drip edge at the end is advisable. And you know, the key here is to make sure that water that gets behind your exterior substrate travels down, and when it comes to your window, it gets kicked out of the building. You want it to exit the building. So another important thing is what they call end dams, which is a turn-up of your membrane at the two sides, so that the water can't drip off the sides of of your flashing and continue down the wall, it hits those end ends and has to travel back out. Repair methods when your window gaskets are having a problem. On your left-hand side, you'll see some pictures of what that looks like. The gaskets literally shrink and they leave a gap in your window frame where water can get in when it rains. You'll even see that some people have like kind of just put a little dabs of caulk on it to temporarily fix it. That'll fix it for a moment, but it's not a long-term solution. The long-term solution is what you'll see on the right-hand side, where you want to trim your silicone gasket flush with the window frame, and then you use a commercial grade silicone to caulk over top of it, and in essence create a new seal with that called a wet seal. You know, that's done with caulk rather than a silicone rubber seal that gets used when it's initially installed. So another repair method is when your weeps are caulked shut. So this typically is not something that you encounter when the windows are installed new. This happens later on when there's some sort of a recaulking program that's done. Sometimes the people in the field don't pay attention to the window frames. They don't pay attention to the fact that there's weeps in the windows that need to be open for water to escape, and they actually caulk over top of them, sealing and trapping water inside. So this is a simple fix that just really requires removal of the sealant at the weep to ensure that the water can exit. Trapped water is obviously going to follow the path of least resistance, and most of the time that means entering your property, your unit. The next thing is repairing old windows. Time for replacement. At a certain point, windows just need to be replaced. The benefit of this is new windows are going to have enhanced performance, enhanced thermal properties, and it's an upgrade to your property. So it's an upgrade to your aesthetics. It's a capital improvement to your property. So that's another benefit of replacing your windows. So who should you talk to about window replacements? You can talk to a window manufacturer. They can help you find the right window for your construction type, because some condominium buildings are high rises, some are located near the water, some are 1 and 2 stories, and so different buildings require different types of windows. You can talk to an architect or an engineering firm. These people are experts. They can do the research for you to find the right windows for your property. And they probably have somewhat of an unbiased opinion on the windows. A window manufacturer is going to try and drive you towards something that's beneficial to them. And if you talk to a window installer, they may drive you toward windows that maybe they favor for whatever the reason is. And then the next thing is talking to a window installer. They can help you with different options for windows. They can offer you price guidance, if not a hard proposal. And contractors can also provide value engineering options if budget's an issue. So why is it important to fix your leaks? First is mold. Water over a period of time can end up causing moisture and mold issues inside of your unit. Can cause property and or unit sale issues. So buyers are going to be turned off by issues existing in your unit. And if this is something that's like a community-wide problem, it could be something that you have to disclose to them, and it could turn them away. Just general aggravation. Having a problem in your unit, it ruins your stuff, it looks bad. The compound effect, that's what I call it. The compound effect is when one problem leads to another problem. Okay, so for example, you have a window leak, but that window leak now damages your sheetrock, or it damages your carpet, or it damages your wood framing. And so now you not only have to fix the leak, you have to fix these other components inside. So that's going to cost you more money. And then lawsuits. Unfortunately, that's something that happens with community associations when somebody has a leak for a long time, something that isn't handled. Quite often you see lawsuits happening, legal battles from an unhappy unit owner suing the condominium association, and just in general, that's a waste of time and energy and money. So that's my presentation. Thanks for watching. If you have any more questions, there's my contact information. Happy to answer anything, any questions you might have.
Okay, so thank you. Thank you very much, Scott. If anyone would like the PowerPoint, would that be available, Scott?
Say that again?
The PowerPoint, would you be able to forward that if anyone's
Absolutely,
interested?
yeah, sure.
Okay, so you can either email me or Scott, and we'll get you the PowerPoint. There are a couple of questions from our attendees. You did touch on this, but just maybe to reiterate on it. What do you suggest the remediation is when the water leaks are intermittent and hard to tell where they're coming from without taking everything apart?
Well, yeah, so that's the problem, right? Without taking everything apart. So that's why when I went through these couple of options, I mean, the first thing you could do, you could start doing process of elimination. Okay, so you can start recalking your windows and checking some of these things, and start with one thing and see if that solves your leak. But the unfortunate part is you may be fixing things that are not part of the problem and spending more money by doing that than it would be to have fixed your problem right from the get-go. Water testing is another way of trying to find the leaks. The downside of that, as I had mentioned, is that sometimes when you have these intermittent leaks, these pesky intermittent leaks, those are some of the hardest to find because it requires just the right kind of conditions to recreate that leak, and every once in a while you can't actually recreate it. I mean, there is a type of water testing where they have like a negative pressure, which they set up something on the exterior of your window, and they actually create a vacuum to try and force water inside your unit to help find the leaks, but that's a very costly thing. So I don't know that would be the case. And I mean, look, unfortunately, sometimes the right answer is to start removing portions of the exterior of your window to identify the true source of the problem.
Okay. All right, and there is one other question. When do you consider windows too old and not worth repairing as opposed to then replacing?
I mean, I'm not personally a window installer, so that might be a better question for, an engineer or a window contractor. I mean, one of our later presenters, Bill Payne from O&S, he's an engineer and his company gets involved in a lot of that, so he might be able to give you a better answer. But, essentially, like if your building is very, very old, I mean, it's one of those things where after a while, if you're talking about your windows are 30 plus years old and you're having problems with them, it starts to be a point where that's the time to replace it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. That was very helpful. If anyone has any other questions for Scott, please just type them into the question box, and we will definitely get them answered for you. Okay, one second. Next we have William Payne. Welcome, William. Or I should say, we know you as Bill, right? Everyone calls you Bill. Any preference? And you are muted.
With a
better.
What a rookie if you don't know when you're muted on a Zoom conference or webinar. I apologize. So Bill is fine. Absolutely, it's fine.
Okay. All right. Welcome. So Bill Payne, the Vice President, Principal of O&S Associates, has been with the company since 1989 and has traveled the country and abroad to troubleshoot leaking and other building issues. Welcome, Bill.
Thank
It's all
you.
yours.
Well, I think Scott and I were given very similar subjects, and I'm glad you rearranged the schedule, the order of events, and maybe I can, kind of work off of what Scott had started, because our topic was leaks in multiple units, and that's such a broad topic. Scott really started talking about windows, but his approach, it would be similar to any leak, or really, any kind of restoration issue where, the first part of your program or approach is to do sort of that assessment, the condition assessment. And I saw the sparkle in Scott's eyes when he was asked, well, how can you affirmatively solve a question without affirmatively, really, digging into it. And I think the reason we get questions like this is because somebody already knows how expensive it is to find answers to some of these questions. I think the reason leaking is such a huge question and topic is, number one, it's a quality of life issue, right? And then number two, the punishment doesn't seem to fit the crime. The cost to repair a leak does not seem equitable to what the problem may or may not be. And the first step of that process is also very expensive, and by the way, we've worked with Scott's company successfully on many projects, and he's assisted us in some of these water testing and exploratory openings and things like that. It is such a valuable part of the process. It's also expensive. And many times communities don't want to invest, or are cautious about how much they invest upfront, trying to look into the causes of a problem, because because the expenses, the costs, they grow very quickly. And I think the economics of a project drive into how people approach sometimes projects the wrong way, right? So, one of the advantages, I think, in dealing with an experienced team, because it really is a team approach where you would have property management or community manager, an engineer or an architect, a good contractor, is that collectively there should be enough institutional knowledge about that particular community or that type of construction that maybe you can guess based on experience where those leaks are coming from. But I thought it was a great question that was asked of Scott, because we get asked that all the time. People would love for us to show up to a project and just say, wave a magic wand and say, here it is. And many times we can, but many times, we really don't know how something is built until you open it up. I'd really love to entertain questions, because I think the topic can be so broad. There are a few attendees. I don't know if we got to all of the questions that Scott had, but perhaps we can tackle some of those together. But what are some of the leak issues that communities are facing? I was just on a webinar last night about a community that seems to have leaks in a number of units, and they've tried a couple of times to remedy them, and they haven't been able to. Is anybody else experiencing those kinds of issues?
Okay. Well, there are a couple of questions. The first one, what are the ABCs to triage leaking into apartments, and what does the first conversation look like and the first proposal for services?
That's a good question. And I think Scott started the ABCs is doing that assessment. And so one of the first things we talk about, the map of, identifying a problem to solving it, we typically organize our services into 4 phases. And those 4 phases would be the condition assessment, and then the goal of the condition assessment is to find the source of the problem, the options, if there are options to those repairs, and the range of costs, so that we can have consensus before proceeding into the design phase, the bidding phase, and construction administration phase. But the ABCs of the condition assessment, the triage, is really determining, is it an exterior wall issue or not? Can you eliminate plumbing? Is it a roofing issue? Scott mentioned, there are many window issues that aren't really related to the windows. They're really related to the flashings and things like that. So I think the triaging is really trying to figure out which component is leaking to try to determine, where the testing and how to program some of that work. So that first conversation usually goes through that kind of understanding and to try to come up with sort of a reasonable approach to that fee service.
Okay, there is one other question so far. What are the most common causes of leaks and how are they remedied? And what are the usual costs?
I always like the cost questions because a lot of times that changes how people want to solve the issues. I like to break leaking into superficial causes and underlying causes. And Scott had just spent a lot of time talking about caulking. Caulking it's a great thing. You see advertisements for all kinds of super duper caulks on TV, and caulk is a very useful and necessary component, but it's superficial. It's taking all of the abuse of weather. It's also extremely vulnerable to workmanship. And so ideal waterproofing usually lies beneath the surface. And if you look at current code and current building technology, ideally, your buildings are watertight before the exterior cladding systems are provided to them, whether your exterior cladding is siding, stucco, EIFS, brick, or masonry, metal panel, whatever it is. The current standard in the current code is that you have a weather-resistant barrier that's continuous with flashings so that your building doesn't leak before those cladding systems go on it. So, the first choice that community has to make often is, are we repairing the leak superficially at the cladding level, or are we repairing the leak at the underlying substrate or the weather-resistant barrier that's supposed to be behind those things, or was your building built prior to those code advancements, or or were there construction defects where that wasn't provided properly? So the cost can range anywhere from, I would say, $3 or $4 per square foot of your wall area, anywhere to $30 or $40 per square foot of your wall area. So that would be the range of costs, and it's a fairly broad range, but we see that range of costs pretty consistently.
Okay, from a manager's perspective, what's the best way to spot problems? Any tips on that for managers?
If you look at a lot of the cities across the U.S., many of them have a 5-year inspection cycle now. Some of you might be familiar with New York City's Local Law 11 or FISP. There are similar laws in Philadelphia and St. Louis and Chicago, and the list goes on. So a 5-year inspection interval seems to be sort of the public standard for doing these wall inspections. So I would say, if many of your communities are in the habit of doing reserve studies on similar interviews, I think that having a regularly scheduled inspection of your exteriors, or making sure that the company is providing reserve studies if they have relevant subject matter expertise in that. But I think those inspections should happen probably on a 5-year basis. For sure.
And there's a question on foundation leaks. Do you want to shed any information on that, or is that something you want to share via email?
Sure. What's the question?
It's, do you ever have to deal with any recommendations on foundation leaks? It's pretty broad.
Foundation leaks are, I mean, we deal with them all the time. You know, obviously there's two basic strategies. The first is, or maybe three, you know, the best is to excavate on the outside of it and provide what they call positive side waterproofing. That's very expensive. So there's a whole, there are several cottage industries developed to solving foundation leak issues from the inside. They range from the type of trenching and pumping systems you'll see for like the commercially available B-dry systems to your crack injection with either epoxies or chemical grouts that will swell with water and so forth. So there's a lot of strategies to deal with foundation leaks. The least expensive is usually the injection routines, but they're usually about 85 or 90% effective. They're never usually 100% solution, but there's a number of strategies depending on where and high and where and what the occupancy is. You would deal with a parking garage differently than you would deal with an office that was below grade.
Okay, and there's one last question on pipe leaks. Is that something you want to address? You want that question? So pipe leaks can cause a great deal of damage, especially in high rises. Is this something that can be detected and prevented?
Detected, prevented, and I would say predicted. I'm amazed that, risers in particular in high rises are a very, it seems like there's a lot of high rises in particular doing riser projects. So I think not only are they detectable, I think that, they're predictable to some extent. Piping systems, depending on the arrangement, they have certain Achilles heels. So some piping systems, if they're a dual piping, like if you have heating and cooling using the same piping, they're vulnerable to certain issues. Water quality makes piping vulnerable to certain types of pipe deterioration and leaks. Expansion joints in a riser system, if your high rise is tall enough, are a very vulnerable item. And even, believe it or not, velocity with certain types of piping, we've actually seen a lot of leaking and piping deterioration because of the velocity of water. So, and I think going back to sort of the ABCs of building technology and construction really can get you a long way to understanding what might be happening so that you can start looking more strategically in those directions.
Thank you. That was excellent. Those are all the questions now, but if anyone else thinks of any other questions, we'll definitely come back to Bill at the end. Thanks, Bill.
Welcome.
Okay. Next up is Debbie. Debbie, you want to come a little closer so we can see you? You're a little dark. Okay. That's good. Debbie Pascarella, CIC Serves. Debbie joined USI Services, formerly BHB Insurance Services, in 1983, specializing in community association insurance. She is currently the insurance professional for approximately 300 communities. Debbie holds the designation of Certified Insurance Counselor, CIC, and Community Insurance and Risk Management Specialist, CIRMS. Debbie has been actively involved with CAI since 1985. She teaches insurance seminars for both the New Jersey State and National Conference, as well as the National Law Conference, many with the emphasis on active adult communities, their clubs and activities. She has published articles in Community Trends and Community Ground. She has served on and chaired on various committees for the New Jersey chapter. She has served 6 years for CAI New Jersey Chapter Board of Directors, has served in the National Insurance Professional and Risk Management Committee for 30 years, and is the past chair. Debbie spearheaded the creation of and served on the task force of the New Jersey Community Insurance and Risk Management Specialist, CIRMS, designation for CAI. Welcome, Debbie.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Hello, everyone. Hey, I'm having a little trouble. When the sun comes out, you can see me, and when it goes behind a cloud, you can't.
Perfect. Good now.
Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. My subject is creating a risk management plan. listening to these two gentlemen talk about one of our number one issues is water damage that's always coming into play, but I will touch on that through my section here. There's two sides to your protection. Insurance is the most obvious part. Most agents are good at completing all the parts of the insurance puzzle, but sometimes they don't go that extra step and work with the community on risk management. That can be overlooked, and it's very important. It has a lot of facets to it. If you can help eliminate a risk and prevent a claim, you're going to be able to contain insurance costs and bypass the pain of dealing with cleaning up after a claim and putting everybody at an inconvenience. So even if you're able to reduce severity of the claims, it's helpful. But containing insurance premiums is huge. Right now, we're seeing increases in insurance premiums because of all the natural disasters we've had across the country over the past couple years with the wildfires and the looting and rioting and the hurricanes and all sorts of things. So as rates are climbing, every insurance company has a range of rates. The better your loss history, the more likely you are to have one of their lower rates. So loss history is 5 years premium paid versus 5 years losses paid. Quite simple. So you want your loss ratio to be as low as possible. And I think that's hugely defined by how proactively you are managing your buildings and trying to prevent the losses. We wind up working with our communities on identifying what your risks are, what are your amenities, what kind of rules can you put in force to protect you both from a property loss standpoint as well as a liability loss standpoint. The gentlemen are talking mostly property, but we also like to talk to you about your risk on a liability claim because that can be very costly, and generally they're the larger parts of your loss runs. So that's an important one. But you do need to identify what kind of amenities you have and what might be an issue with communities that you have barbecues and there's rules of how far they have to be away from the building. If you have allowed generators to be used, how safely can they be used? If you have a backup generator for the high rise, does it have a secondary containment unit in case there's a fuel spill? If it happens to be a diesel generator, then you're going to have communities that may have other amenities like restaurants and things, and that puts a whole additional list of risk management of things that have to be implemented for safety on that. And then we're going to talk about your contractors. What kinds of contracts do you get involved in? Do you get certificates of insurance? Do you have your insurance professional review that contract to make sure, are you signing a hold harmless agreement? Can you get it insured? And make sure that that contractor has the proper insurance. Does that contract have a reverse hold harmless? Sometimes we see those, and those can be really problematic. We've seen pool companies and snow removal companies try to get the association to list them as an additional insured. And you know that's not going to happen. So you want to be careful that you're not signing a contract agreeing to hold someone harmless in a claim if you can't fund that claim by insurance. That becomes quite costly for a community. And you want to make sure you don't have that issue to go with. Additional insureds. You want to make sure any contractor that you do hire has the association named as additional insured. And you want to make sure they have proper coverage. One of the most common things we're seeing nowadays is contractors that aren't carrying workers' compensation. Well, they may not be required by law to carry workers' compensation because they may not have any employees, and they have opted out for themselves as owners if it's not a corporation. But that's still problematic for the association, because if that sole proprietor is injured on your property, they can take refuge on the association's workers' compensation policy, which is one of the main reasons to have it, even if you have no employees. but they have their own courts. They have the compensation courts. They don't use regular civil court. And that compensation court can deem an uninsured subcontractor to be an association's employee for as little as 4 things. You tell them what you want done, when you want it done, you supervise their work, and you pay them. Then if they are deemed to be an employee of the association for making those 4 points, that'll wind up on your workers' compensation loss history. And that can be problematic if you have a large policy, because you get the experience rating, and that can be a problem. So that's one of the issues with that. And if you're doing pool company, snow removal company, you want to make sure that you're additional insured, because if there's a liability loss and it is deemed to be the cause of that subcontractor or service provider, you want to be protected on their policy instead of putting a claim in on your policy. There's also some additional things. If you're going to have certain activities, is it covered by your insurance? Do you know? Some events may need to have special event insurance. We recommend that while you're renting your clubhouse out, to your residents, is that you have them get a special event policy. We used to tell people that having a homeowner's policy was good enough, but they wouldn't allow the association to be named on a homeowner's policy as additional insured. The special events policy program that's now available will do that, which is very helpful, because other than that, the association would still have to put a claim in to their own policy to be defended in those cases. You want to make sure that you have firewalls. Okay, firewalls, everybody thinks of those as physical partitions, party walls, things like that. That's the main part of what a firewall is. But then there's the invisible firewalls, and that's what we're talking about. If you can keep a claim from coming into the association's policy, that's building an invisible firewall to protect you. It's transferring the risk to another party that's able to put it on their insurance and keep it off your loss history. When you're creating these risk management checklists, you want to make sure you go over everything with your agent or your broker. And you're not going to we do what we call a risk reduction plan. And there's about 6 main items that are standard that will apply to most any community. We don't expect that you're going to get them all implemented in one shot. You should prioritize them. One of the things that's important, and I know sometimes communities have to do bylaws amendments to make sure residents have homeowners policies. And that's quite important because they're going to have the need to potentially cover the deductible. They need their own loss assessment. There's many things that they need on their own homeowners insurance, plus their own personal liability. And then also, we're going to suggest that tenants have a policy as well. And that is, once again, to transfer the risk. Every set of documents I've ever looked at requires the association to waive their right to subrogate against an owner, even if the owner caused the loss. That subrogation, waiver of subrogation, doesn't apply to a tenant. So if you have, as part of your leasing requirements, you mandate that there's a tenant homeowners policy, you really don't care that they have insurance on their contents. You care that they have insurance for bodily injury and property damage that they may cause. It's a whole different ballgame. You can subrogate against a tenant. You cannot subrogate against an owner. Once you've put a plan together, we recommend that you communicate it to your residents so they know if they need to make sure their policies are properly written. If you transfer deductibles to them, not all homeowners policies will cover that. So that's an important thing to make sure you communicate. The last thing I want to talk about is an emergency plan. Have an emergency procedures book, or I guess it would be virtual nowadays, nothing's in writing anymore. Keep important phone numbers there, your insurance agent, your gas company, emergency services, residence numbers, instructions to follow on who's going to be in charge. And then who's the backup person in charge in case, God forbid, you can't get a hold of the first person? There should be evacuation plans. There should be water and gas shutoffs identified for all areas. And make sure you keep your important documents and data with a backup. And nowadays with the iCloud and stuff, there's no reason why there can't be lots of backups on things. The other thing you want to do is keep inventory, pictures and things of what you may have. I had a community that lost their whole clubhouse, and everything was going along beautifully, being rebuilt and refurnished until holiday season came around and they realized they never put in for their holiday decorations. So we had to do an addendum on that one, but something as small as that. And I can tell you, even though you look at something every day, once it's not in front of your face anymore, you won't remember everything that's there. So I recommend that highly to do pictures and keep inventory off premises. Do you have questions?
Yes, there are actually quite a few. Okay, first, always a lot of questions. Let's see, 1 second. Hold on. Is there another agreement that protects the community property manager if a workers' comp policy is not in place?
It's going to wind up going under the liability. I don't know. You would talk to your attorney about if you're going to try to get a subcontractor to sign a waiver saying that they wouldn't sue. That's something you could discuss with the attorney. I don't know if they hold up or they don't hold up, but that's why we tell every association to make sure you have at least a minimum premium policy in force, even if you don't have employees. I don't know of any other insurance that you pay for after you need it. What they would do is they would, at time of audit, they would pick up the payroll of that subcontractor and charge you for covering him after they've actually paid the claim. So that's a kind of unique system.
Okay. All of our unit owners were recently told that we had to name our condo associations additionally insured on their personal condo insurance. Is this correct?
I don't know of any homeowners carriers that will do that. I mean, I'm sure there's one out there. I don't write personal insurance, but our office certainly does. And I don't know of any of our carriers that will name the association as additional insured. So I think just making sure they have it. And that's why I suggested the special events policy. If they're going to be having a family event at the clubhouse, you can buy that special event policy. It's probably about $100, and that's going to name the association as additional insured. But I don't know of any regular homeowners policies that do it.
Okay, I think I know the answer to this, but I'll ask it anyway. Have you seen anything written under COVID?
Have I seen anything written or paid?
That's the question. Yeah, written.
Okay.
I guess policies.
Okay. I know of one surplus lines company that was trying to put something together, and it died before it was born. Unfortunately, it didn't ever come about. I don't think there's enough information for a company to actually start writing coverage for it. I think they want to get through it first, and then is there a need for it? I'm not sure. I do know one case in Texas where the courts upheld for the insurance company in denying coverage. So it's a real tricky one, and it's been very difficult. I've probably done over 100 Zoom meetings since it all started to explain the risks of, you know, if you are reopening and what happens and what do you do when you don't have coverage. It becomes out-of-pocket expense to defend the association. I know it's difficult to prove where anyone got it, but if someone sues the association claiming they got it, it becomes a matter of defending the association, and where do those defense costs get paid? It's going to come out of the association's funds. If they don't have those funds, every unit owner gets special assessed for them, and that can be heartbreaking because it's not covered on special assessment coverage on your homeowner's policy. So
interesting. Okay, that's helpful. Can you repeat the information related to the statement waiver of subrogation does not apply to tenants?
Okay. Waiver of subrogation is the ability for an insured to ask the insurance company to waive their rights to go after another insurance company to recover their damages. I'll give you a real easy example. If someone rear ends you when you're driving down the street, you could go through your own insurance company, or you could get out and talk to the person who rear-ended you, get their information and go through their insurance. You might get out and it might be a scary person and you decide to get back in your car and call your own agent. Your own agent would then subrogate against their insurance policy and get their money back after they pay you and maybe recover deductible. So that's what subrogation means. Every set of documents requires that the association's insurance policy waive their right to subrogate against an owner, because the owners are the association. So that's why that's put into play. So even if I've had some fire losses where it was candles burning or somebody sleeping in, falling asleep smoking in bed or whatever, the association's policy cannot subrogate against that owner. But the waiver of subrogation does not apply to a tenant. It also doesn't apply from unit owner to unit owner. So if a unit owner causes a loss and the people downstairs take the brunt of whatever that loss was, say a water claim or something, they have the ability to subrogate against the people upstairs. Tenants also, we find a lot of losses originate in rented units. And I don't know if it's because they're just not used to home ownership, or they don't have pride in ownership, or what happens. They're not as maybe conscious of the maintenance requirements and things, but we find a lot of losses occur in rented units. And I had a fire that a 6-year-old boy was left home alone. And there had been a fire in another unit, and the little boy was really happy about watching the firemen and the fire trucks. And when they left, he wanted them to come back. The mother had a hibachi on the back deck and charcoal and lighter fluid. He took the lighter fluid, squirted it all over the back of his house, threw a match on it, and got on his bicycle and rode it up on the hill and watched the fire trucks come back. If they had had this in force, they could have gone after that tenant homeowner's policy and recovered that $300,000 fire, and it would have come off their loss history. The mother came running home and everything she owned was smoldering on the front lawn. She didn't have insurance. She couldn't afford insurance because she couldn't afford daycare. So that was a problem. Had she had that $200 or $300 policy, whatever they may be, the association's policy could have subrogated the loss, taken it off their loss history. Instead, they carried two separate fires on their loss history for 5 years, and everybody's maintenance fees went up. So you can see the importance of how this can trickle down to everyone's own pocket. And I think that's where it hurts.
Okay, there's one last question. How do we know if a contractor has a sufficient amount of insurance and proper insurance?
Your agent should be happy to review certificates of insurance with you, or even give you a little seminar on how you review them yourself. Generally, in your contract with that contractor, there's going to be minimum insurance requirements, and that's usually written with the association's attorney. But we'd be happy to review them and make sure they're complying. I have looked at several where they may put the association in the certificate holder box, but they never write in that they're an additional insured. If your name's in that certificate holder box, it only means you're a certificate holder. It has not included you in the insurance coverage. That's got to be in a specific area just above there. The other thing is that you should always make sure that not just the association's additional insured, but also the management company. Because when an association signs a management contract, they have agreed to hold the manager harmless if they're named in a lawsuit while acting at the board's direction. So you would want them also covered by this contractor as an additional insured. If not, you could wind up in a situation where you're protected on the contractor's policy for a liability lawsuit, but you would have to open a claim on your own policy anyway to extend that coverage to the property manager. So that defeats the purpose. You're still going to have a claim on your policy. So if you wind up putting both of them on, These are part of your risk management plan that you should have with your insurance broker. And let me make another recommendation. I'm a firm believer in reviewing your insurance agent before you put your insurance out to bid. Not all insurance agents and brokers are created equal. They don't all offer the same services or offer to educate the board and the community and the manager. So I think you wouldn't hire an engineer or an auditor or even your manager or anybody that gives you professional services. You wouldn't hire them without interviewing them. So why wouldn't you interview your insurance agent and make sure they're giving you the best service, that you do click with each other, that you feel comfortable and confident with that insurance professional? Because if you don't, if you're just looking at 2 proposals, it may as well be a snow removal proposal, because you're not going to get the full picture of what that agent or broker will do and what their services are going to be like, and if you even like them. So just a little hint.
Thanks, Debbie. Well, those are all the questions for today. We're just about out of time. I want to thank all of our speakers and attendees. If you think of any other questions, please feel free to pass them on to me, and I will forward them on to our speakers and get those questions answered for you. So thank you again, and we will see you all next week, hopefully. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.